John, tell us a little bit about all of these titles and who you are.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, everybody, for coming in today. And yeah, you bring up an interesting point in that we met when I was in the media business, and I think everybody saw that media was being kind of disrupted by technology. So at some point, you know, I had worked with Russell Simmons for many years. We made the transition into technology and launched our first technology business. I launched my first technology business back in 2008, which was kind of an Expedia with video called Voyage TV. And we went out and raised $10 million for that business. But coming from a media background, I was considered a non-technical founder. So at some point while we were running Voyage TV, I decided to go back to Columbia University and get an additional degree. I had a business degree, so I wanted a computer science degree. So, you know, you go kind of part-time as an adult, so it took many years, but made the transition from media to technology. And even the professors at Columbia University would tell us that it would be decades before technology could actually write a computer program, that it could check your syntax or make sure that you didn't leave out a colon or a period, but it would be decades before computers could actually write computer code. And as we all saw about a year ago, ChatGPT kind of came out of the box writing computer code. So we knew that that was a super special thing, and that's kind of my art. You know, I kind of started in media, moved over to technology, and started a new business, Latimer.ai, because we knew that what ChatGPT and Google were doing is revolutionary. It's as big as, I would say, the mobile phone was, or the advent of the internet. You know, it's really going to change potentially everything. And you know, I was just when we first saw ChatGPT, I think everybody was amazed and looked at some of the capabilities. But then the other thing that we saw was, hey, it's not getting everything correct, or it's saying things that are insulting or have bias. So we saw that as well. And then we were surprised that nobody was kind of jumping in, really. We were just kind of asking Google or Meta or Amazon to fix those things. And, you know, our point is really that, you know, we should kind of have ownership. We shouldn't always be asking these giant companies, as great as they are, to, you know, fix our history or fix the way that it, you know, speaks to us or thinks of us. This technology, you know, in some senses has a mind of its own. So we wanted to make sure that we owned something, that we could train up a piece of artificial intelligence that we could train. And we don't have to ask anybody for anything else.
So we just heard brag. He is being very modest. Let me brag on him one more time. When he talked about Russell Simmons, here's the story, y'all. So he finally says, okay, I'm going to take you on. I'm going to help you build what you can't build yourself. Next thing I know, he invites me to a place. I go to the place. I'm in New York. I don't know what I'm doing or where I am. It's a restaurant. I walk in, and there's Stan Latham and Russell Simmons sitting there. And this is the way he introduces me. He says, this is Stan, this is Russell, this is Chuck. Russell, Stan, here's your new partner. Y'all missed that. Let me show you, let me set you up one more time. I'm sitting there like this, not knowing what to do or where to go. He is sitting there saying, Stan, Russell, here's your new partner. His name is Chuck, go.
Well, you had built the business. You had built the show at that point. So.
John takes things and makes them spectacular. I just want to set that stage for you. Now I want to go back and talk about the two sides of AI, and then we'll talk landscape and funding and traversing all of that. Talk tech and then talk culture, because there's really two parallel tracks that go with what you're doing right now. there's tech and there's culture. Can you talk both of those planes?
Okay. Talking tech, so we've seen, all of the big companies, and there's really just kind of 5 really big tech companies that are building artificial intelligence as we kind of know it. And what OpenAI has done that's really impressive is that they've kind of allowed other people to use what's called an API. So you can kind of build on top of it. And that's from a technology standpoint what we've done. We've built our own database that has our own history. So, for instance, we have an exclusive relationship with the New York Amsterdam News, and we've used their data. We brought their data in, and, they're the second oldest Black newspaper in the United States. Their data goes back to 1926. And that's stories that we want to have. That's stories, you can almost think of AI as kind of a really smart person. But as smart as it is, it only has the information that you give it. And then if you have a company, let's say, where 2% of the workforce or of the engineers are Black and brown, the priorities of what information is important to those people is maybe a little bit different than what you and I would think we would want that entity or that person or that platform to know. So we went out and we licensed the New York Amsterdam News. We have a great what I'd call a content czar, Professor Molefe Asante, who created the first African-American Studies PhD program in the United States. He's at Temple University. So, we're building technology. The technology is accessible. It's not tremendously expensive. Those foundation models, and again, there's about 5 companies that are building those really, really big models. OpenAI being the most well-known, that's expensive. But if you're building a chatbot and you want to get an API from OpenAI or Gemini, we saw Google launch Gemini. Certainly they had some well-publicized issues with some of the images coming out of Gemini, but it's Google. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They'll get that right. They allow you to kind of build on top. They want people to build on top, which is somewhat of an invitation to everybody in this room or listening to use your own creativity and use those tools. I heard Munson talking about YouTube University. There's no need really anymore that you have to go to a university, although we are here at Morehouse. You can learn coding. You can learn how you want to use these tools online today. There's a great site called deeplearning.ai. Obviously YouTube, there's plenty of resources if you want to understand how the technology works. Now, on top of that, yes, there is the culture. Black Americans, Black people kind of drive culture in the United States. So that's kind of a funny thing to own, the culture, in the sense that it's not like real estate where you can easily buy and sell it. But we do own it, and you can see online sometimes, if somebody's appropriating that culture, you get some pushback. So what we don't want to happen in this new AI revolution is, hey, somebody created this Biggie video, but did they get permission? Do they have the rights to it? So when you can start appropriating the culture without paying the folks that kind of created it, I see that's a big problem, because especially for us, where a big part of our wealth is just really embedded in the culture.
So I'll stay right there for a second, and then I'm going to come back and ask specifically around Latimer and how it came. Okay. But you do know you're in the cradle of culture. You're at Morehouse.
Yeah.
HBCU.
Absolutely.
Any HBCU, anybody? let him hear it, will you? Let him hear it. There it is. There you go. So I just need you to understand where you are right now.
All right. Thank you for that, Chuck. Yeah. Appreciate that.
The reason I'm harping on that is because obviously between, getting it right from a technical aspect, but also getting it right from a culture perspective, and speak to why it was important that you had to find this sweet spot, this place of this amazingly transformative tool that's going to happen. Yeah. So speak to Latimer and where the name came from, why'd you choose it? Because it also speaks to culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We chose the name because Louis Latimer was a genius and in many ways somewhat unrecognized. We're not always learning about him. Depending on where you go to school, you may, maybe you never even heard of him. Some people think that, yeah, he worked with Thomas Edison, and yeah, he worked with Alexander Graham Bell, and maybe he didn't get the credit. Like, we don't have video of who actually made the filament in the light bulb. And we understand who got the credit, and we all learn about, Thomas Edison in school, but Louis Latimer is right there. So, what was his contribution to that? And it's, there's significant contributions, and there's literally thousands, tens of thousands of these, creators, Black people who really built this country in a lot of different ways, up through science and technology and math. And somehow those stories aren't always told. We understand that we have phenomenal entertainers and we have phenomenal folks in sports, and we see a lot of them, but we name the company because we also want to recognize that we have, some great thinkers, and those folks should get their light as well, and they will, to the best of our ability, we'll make sure that they can. And I think that, as we think about, what's AI and what's the impact of it going to be, I look at it like, some people say, well, even ChatGPT right now might be as smart or 5 times as smart as Albert Einstein. It's read every single word that it could on the internet. Anything that it could scrape has been scraped. Words, maybe not images, maybe not all the videos yet, but you can imagine if you read every word and could recall every word on the internet, that you'd be a pretty knowledgeable person. So this is an entity or a piece of technology that has read every single word, and its ability to form sentences or paragraphs or books or make scripts. You had the writer's strike in the West Coast because they're recognizing, hey, this technology, if you even just give it an idea, and we've seen it in prompts now with videos, you just give it an idea, that's really all it needs. And it can, if you said I needed a Terminator 3 movie and it knew the script from Terminator 2, it would just write the script for you, and it would take, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So as a writer, that's very disconcerting. And, businesses, studios are very kind of bottom line driven. So, hey, if I can replace those expensive writers with this piece of technology, that's pretty alluring for the businesses.
So now you bring up this, the other side. As great as some people think AI is, talk about the challenges that come with it, because you just brought up a few, and you sort of you tapped it and then you pulled back. Talk about the folks who are on the opportunity side and the challenge side, because at some point we'll all meet in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, it's really new technology, so it's even hard for everybody to agree on what the challenges will be. We know that it's going to disrupt jobs. We just don't know how many jobs. They kind of say that anybody that's, if your job is sitting at a computer, like, if you're a carpenter, if you're a plumber, your job is safe. If your whole job can be done sitting in front of a computer, it's pretty smart. It can probably do, maybe not now, but maybe 6 months, it could probably do your job. And the other thing that I like to point out is that the CEO of OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, is a guy, Sam Altman, and we've seen him testify in front of Congress. Sam Altman has another company called WorldCoin. They've raised $100 million for this company that probably most people have never heard of, called WorldCoin. It's very hard to raise $100 million, by the way. So without anybody really seeing completely what it is, it's called universal basic income. I think we saw during the pandemic the problems the U.S. government had in getting everybody a check on time. So Sam Altman, I guess, assuming that he sees the disruption that ChatGPT is going to drive, has another company that solves for universal basic income, which means here's your $2,000 a month. We're going to pay you in digital currency. We have a retinal scanner to identify you, which is one of the big problems the government had in identifying everybody and getting them their money. But why would you think that we need WorldCoin? You know, so that's my thing, is like, what is he thinking? He's kind of getting ahead of the curve. We're not thinking, hey, we're going to be out of a job, but the guy that created ChatGPT is already building for that future.
So what are you telling us, John? Do you want us to be happy or scared?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to build. There's an opportunity to be creators and producers. We just, I think, have to kind of pay attention as well.
So in paying attention, when you think about the landscape, so most people speak of technology as a next and a now.
Yeah.
What I've heard this morning and what we've all heard is it's a next and a now. So talk about now and then talk about next in terms of landscape.
Now is a great time because, you know, everything is, you know, nothing has settled. Sure, we have these 5 big companies, you know, Amazon, Metas of the world that are, you know, have the resources to buy all the NVIDIA chips and make all the processing happen. Okay, so that's that. But we, you know, we still want to be entertained. We still have culture. We still have the people that create the culture and own the culture. So we just want to figure out ways that we can continue to do that in this kind of next round that's coming, and position ourselves as owners as opposed to consumers.
So since you mentioned owners, let's talk about money.
Okay.
Can I have some? Just kidding. There is a fine line, and then there's this huge chasm between I've got a great idea and I want to get it to market. Yeah. So the commercialization of things and really the process. Talk about from the time you had the idea of Latimer to where you are right now.
We formed the company, I think, in July of last summer, and we launched the product, the first product, Latimer.ai, the large language model, January 22nd. So that's fairly rapid from idea to, hey, you know, you can go to the internet and use it. I think doesn't have to be that rapid. I mean, you know, some ideas take longer. You know, I've been at this for a second, so we have relationships, but, you know, there's some great resources out there. And I have to give it up to Munson. He's kind of at the center of some of this and is super supportive for technology and new ideas and convening something like this where people can kind of get together. That's a very big part of it. You know, I used to work alongside a guy named Andre Harrell, who was at Uptown Records and Motown. And he used to stress that one of the most important things that you could develop is your network. Who do you know? So who can you call when you need something, whether it's a technical issue and you just want to understand how to get your head around it, or you need a chat because, hey, I have a great idea. Yeah,
by the way, did anybody notice when I said, can I have some? He just laughed. Okay, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
So, yeah, you know, I would say build your network. Whether that's, again, if you're on the technical side or the marketing side or, you know, whatever it is, And there are resources, as we know. I think some statistics just came out that, people of color, Black people, got a very small slice of the venture funding. I think it was under 1% last year, really very, very small. But that's not to say there aren't sources of capital. So I wouldn't get too caught up in those statistics. If you have a great idea and you kind of know how to kind of hustle a little bit, you have to be a bit of a promoter, I think. Or whatever, sometimes I look at somebody like Bill Gates, who's got zero charisma, but had a great idea and was able to go out and make it happen, and is one of the richest people on the planet. So charisma helps, not always, speaking to a very charismatic person, but it's not always necessary. And then there's great Black own venture capital companies, Collab Capital here in Atlanta, many others. And that's just kind of a giant resource that you can look at on the internet.
I think we're going to open up to some questions from you guys, but as you think about any questions you might have for John, I'm going to ask him some rapid fire. So you only have like 2 or 3 words to answer. When you wake up in the morning, what do you think about?
What to do, what's next.
When you go to sleep at night, what do you think about?
Probably, what do I have to do tomorrow? What's next?
So when you look out at folks and they are thinking about what's now and what's next, they're thinking about Latimer, what would you say to them?
I would say use it as a tool. You can do many things with large language models, whether it's, hey, you want to have a conversation or you want to ask it about history, but we just added a feature where you could upload a file or a document as well. So, hey, I'm not going to read these 20 pages. I'm going to upload it to Latimer and I'm going to ask it for a summary. And, that can be done in a lot of different ways for a lot of different purposes. So these are tools to make your life better and easier. It saves your chat history. So if you want to go back to something you were thinking about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, it's right there. And, as you start to interface with Latimer or any large language model, you'll find yourself, it's somewhat of an extension of your own thinking, your own brain, really, because it is conversational. It's a little bit different than search, where Google search, you're looking for maybe a specific website or a specific resource. With large language models, it's almost like talking to a really smart friend, and you can save those conversations and you can kind of come back to them and, add the next layer to them.
From my smart friends, if there are any questions. Yes, sir.
Our roadmap is to continue to release a lot of tools. So an API allows other companies to, for a consumer, you go to latimer.ai, you type that in, and you can enter in your question or your query. With an API, a company, an insurance company, a bank that wants to use it for whatever reason they can connect electronically. So we believe, you have OpenAI, or ChatGPT, that launched about a year and some months ago, currently has a revenue run rate of about $1.8 billion a year. So they've gone from zero to $1.8 billion in a very short period of time. And a lot of that's driven by the fact that companies can very easily, frictionless, you would say, in the business, can connect to them. So we have a series of kind of business tools, and then a series of kind of consumer tools to make it easier or more rewarding for consumers to interact with us. How much do I think it would cost? We're seeing the costs kind of come down. Everybody sees, NVIDIA made these wonderful chips that allow computers to think in new ways or faster ways. Those chips are extremely expensive. There are new technologies that are coming out that allow your phone or a regular computer to have some of that kind of processing power. Costs are coming down. It was billions of dollars to create a foundation model. It's going to be a lot less in the future. As we grow our data, that is something that we always think about. Can we take our database and just make it our foundation model at some point?
Yes, sir. That's you? Yeah. Hey.
Thank you. So I'll repeat that. So you mentioned biases earlier, and I wanted to find out what are some of the trends. I'm working with a company where we are working to kind of do an overlay to help people identify that's incorrect, that's a bias. Like you said, it's reading all of this information off of the internet, but again, we know there's all the isms that kick in. So I'd love your thoughts on trends.
Okay, so the question is about bias and how, when you say, oh, ChatGPT read the whole internet, as we all know, there are corners of the internet like Reddit comments or YouTube comments or Twitter, where you see a lot of language and you see a lot of attitudes that you probably wouldn't want repeated, but those models don't know really from the start, they don't know good from bad, so that they did repeat a lot of that language, which is in many cases biased in a negative way. We announced, Latimer announced, I think in December, that we're working with Morgan State University in developing some tools to also mitigate bias. So the bigger companies have put up guardrails. They haven't gone in, let's say, and deleted that troublesome kind of content that's in the database. It's just in there, but they put up guardrails. And I think the intelligence of these networks or third-party software that you can kind of add is an area of opportunity, because we want our kids to be able to use these safely. If there's a tool or a piece of software that I can install that maybe looks at those responses first and makes sure that there's nothing objectionable, I think that's great.
And I think I want to add just 2 cents to say, since there was a shout out to Morgan State, I can't wait, and I know this is already in process, because some of the HBCUs that we've spoken to about Latimer, everybody's excited about it. So pretty soon, Munson, there will be more shout outs than Morgan State.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the next HBCUs who will adopt Latimer.
Can we, just on the HBCU front, one of the things that we've done, if you use Latimer a lot, you kind of bump into a paywall where it says, hey, for $9.99 a month, you can subscribe to Latimer. But for HBCU students, when we work with their parent, with the organization itself, with the HBCU, we make it free for HBCU students.
Hello. Yeah, I think that's big. I think it's huge because, this goes back to one of the questions I asked about tech and culture. So what if there was an opportunity for HBCUs to help form, to help drive, to help champion, right? Not only from a perspective of being part of the culture, but all of those great minds, the next minds, would be a part of this revolution, evolution, or whatever you want to call it. And so I just want to thank you for bringing HBCUs along in this entire process at the beginning.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's an opportunity. It's there's great talent. So it's not even just we just think that that's a great opportunity for us to interact with these young folks and encourage them to create. I think we can bring a little bit of knowledge. We've reached out to companies like Google or X and Amazon and Adobe. We've been reaching out to say, hey, let's do these workshops. Let's take them on tour because there's so much talent.
Yeah. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, can you?
There you go.
Now can be heard. Hey, John, this is Lachey from Black AI Think Tank and Black Metaverse. And my thing is that, first of all, I just want to thank you for your constantly being out here sharing your knowledge about AI and how it can benefit our community. You seem to give and give and give. It's not really a question for us to kind of learn more, but a question for how can we actually help you continue to grow Lattimore as you give and give and give. What can we do to help support you continue your mission?
Wow, I really appreciate that. Just use it. It's, Latimer is a tool, and we appreciate your feedback. People get in touch with us. They tell us great stories, or they tell us, things that might help us improve. Latimer, we've gotten tremendous outreach, actually from all over the globe, from England, from Africa, of people that have content. We've writers that have said, hey, I have these books, I own the rights, this should be in your database, and they're absolutely right. So any feedback is super helpful.
That was actually the close right there, so thank you. Yeah, we are at time. Would you give it up for founder, originator, innovator, leader, John Pasmore?